Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you again today. Welcome back to my channel. So what I'm going to do today is, first of all, try and raise my voice a little bit. Thanks to those who gave me some feedback that the volume wasn't loud enough. So I'm going to try and speak louder as much as I can. By my very nature, I have quite a soft tone, so I'll do my best. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to follow up on my last video, which was a video where I presented Saturn in terms of the generic cycle and all the various ages that are real significant turning points and transitional points as well, I would call them. Okay, now I just had a look at my last video, so just to see where I left off. So my last comment, I was basically explaining that Saturn in Capricorn, in terms of just the sign Capricorn, is an extremely elevated place for Saturn to be, because that's its natural domain. It rules Capricorn, and we know it rules Aquarius as well, and it is actually exalted in Libra. I don't know if I mentioned that last time. So planets do very well when they're in rulership and when they're in exaltation, so that's something that you should be aware of. So in terms of the trajectory over the next 2.5 years, while Saturn will be in Capricorn throughout that whole time, it's not about just looking at Saturn in Capricorn alone, because, well, first of all, do you have Saturn in Capricorn? You may have, and if you do, that's pretty good. You may not, though. You may have Saturn in a totally different sign. So, pardon me, it's really important to assess your actual natal Saturn, where it's located in your natal chart, and following that through in terms of where it lands at the moment in the sign of Capricorn in your own chart. So where is the sign of Capricorn located? I'm going to expand on that in a moment, but just to recap, just some major points about Saturn in Capricorn. So just in terms of recapping with the myth, I've explained to you that Saturn is the Lord of Time, often also said to be the Lord of Karma. Karma can be seen in various dimensions in our chart, such as the 12th house, for example. But when we look at Saturn, we certainly do associate Saturn with our karma. And I just want to clarify something. There seems to be, for some people, a view that karma is always something that's inherently bad. And that's a very limited view, because as we all know, life isn't just bad or just good. Those terms are very, very limiting and don't really encapsulate the whole essence of life and the variety of experiences and growth and development that each of us go through, depending on who we are and when we were born and so forth. So while Saturn is the Lord of Karma, and look, admittedly, where Saturn's location is natally in your chart, you will have some really important lessons to go through and to grow through and to learn from. So it's not going to be an easy gig. Wherever Saturn is located, there is always a lot of work to be done. Okay, and the thing in my belief and my understanding, astrologically, spiritually, esoterically, philosophically, and so forth, the soul actually chooses the lessons it wishes to learn, and sometimes we choose some really hardcore lessons. And just to bring Pluto into the picture, only because this is important for this statement, when somebody has a very intensified life in terms of they feel like they're going through the ringer, it's just a lot of intense, hardcore lessons, and some really painful lessons as well. It is often the sign of Pluto actually aspecting a lot of planets in the individual's chart, because it is Pluto that fast tracks, if you like, our soul's evolution, because that's what the soul has chosen. Some people choose an easier incarnation with less intense energies and lessons and so forth. That's That's just what they, maybe they need to have a break, as it were. We can go through many different lifetimes where we have some, you know, a lot of hardship, a lot of intensified soul lessons and karmic lessons, and then sometimes soul chooses to have a break in their next incarnation and maybe just have a rest, as it were. Might sound a bit weird, but that's my understanding, at least. So getting back to Saturn, so wherever Saturn is located in your chart, it is going to show you where hard work is being called for. You need to pay attention to that, because the natural response to that would be resistance, fear, and just a feeling of a lot of hard work. And, you know, how do I do this? How do I get through this? So depending on where Saturn is in your chart, so I've got Saturn in my 4th house natally, and the 4th house is, you know, home, family, childhood, things like that, and it is also the unconscious spiritual life, if you like. So, but on that external 3D level, Saturn in the 4th very much brings up karmic patterns in the family, and things that need to be worked through there. So there's a lot of separation and loss that can occur when you've got Saturn in the 4th house, and certainly that has been my experience as I have grown up. Okay, so Saturn has a 29-year cycle, as I mentioned in the previous video. However, it goes through very significant turning points at very significant ages. Now, I'm going to use an example for you today. It's not of anybody's chart. It could be somebody's chart, but it's not anybody in particular. And I'm only really going to, I've only just drawn on my board Saturn, transiting Saturn, natal Saturn, and the Sun. And I just want to give you a little demonstration of what that could potentially mean for somebody, or if you had this in your own chart. But before I do that, so Saturn is the son of Uranus, and he became the king of the gods until he was overthrown by his son Jupiter, and that changed the whole dimension. So, and remember, I mentioned as well that Saturn ate all his children but one, which was Jupiter. And that's why Jupiter overthrew him. And the symbolism behind Saturn eating all his children is simply that fear of not wanting anybody to overthrow him, overtake him, or control him. So Saturn has an inherent psychology within wherever it is in our chart that brings up a lot of fears and insecurities within us on that deep psychological level and other levels as well. So whilst, I mean, on a really positive level, and now that Saturn is in Capricorn, it's in its domain, as I've said, so it's he's feeling really happy there, really comfortable. It's a period of consolidation, essentially. So it's Saturn in Capricorn on that external 3D ego level is very much about climbing the social ladder. I'm not saying that's a negative thing, I'm just pointing out that that's how it manifests on that 3D level. Somebody could be working on a spiritual level with this energy as well, so it's enhancing their spiritual development and growth. But at the end of the day, no matter how positive Saturn is in Capricorn, and yes, it can help one climb the ladder, as it were, consolidate, become very grounded in well, whatever it is they're structuring and trying to create in their life. But if there are some difficult things happening in other ways in the chart, then, you know, Saturn's going to bring up his fears, his insecurities, which comes up as Saturn can be very pessimistic. Okay, Jupiter is optimism and Saturn is pessimism at its worst level. But wherever Saturn is transiting, even though it is now going through a really high period in terms of being in his own domain and rulership, and it is a period of consolidation, the thing is that the success and the rewards don't actually come easily. So it's not like, you know, oh yeah, Saturn's in Capricorn, you know, let's just take it easy and everything will fall into place. Well, it doesn't actually work like that. Saturn really requires us to apply ourselves, to show our determination, to show our patience, our perseverance, and our ability to stay with something. Because Saturn is all about time, so it takes time to work through these things. It takes time to create and build, particularly on this 3D, you know, level of reality, which we are all privy to or subjected to, and we can't avoid that. Saturn rules this reality, so Saturn is teaching us how to manage this reality and all the lessons that we need to go through in order to live in this 3D reality as best we can. But as I said, on a very negative, dysfunctional level, Saturn can bring up being withdrawn. It brings up depression, pessimism, feeling isolated, feeling lonely, feeling alone, feeling unsupported, right? That's the negative side of Saturn, and much more. But, you know, on a positive level, it's actually what helps us tune into that ability to take responsibility for our life and ourself, and to direct our life. You know, there is a lot of self-empowerment through consciousness and awareness in setting intentions and creating and directing your life, but that comes with responsibility. Freedom comes with responsibility. A lot of people don't often understand that or even hear that, but freedom actually does come with responsibility. That's the higher sort of manifestation of Saturn and Uranus. Don't forget, Saturn and Uranus both rule Aquarius, and Aquarius is that sign that is all about freedom, humanitarian causes, idealisms, and so forth. And it's about being rebellious and not conforming to the norm and the rules and so forth. So, you know, Aquarius has it's almost like it has two sides to it because it's ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So there's the Saturnian type of Aquarian, and then there's the Uranian type of Aquarian. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that that freedom element comes with responsibility as well. Responsibility for ourselves and our life. Okay. Now, the things that you need to really be looking at in your chart now with Saturn moving into Capricorn is, first of all, where is Saturn located in your birth chart? Make a note of that. Write it down. Is it is it in your second house? What sign is it in? What degree is it in? And what aspects does it have? This is all natally, right? This is not looking at anything else, just looking at your own natal birth chart. Because wherever Saturn is located, it's started something in that particular part of your life when you were born. And it carries through that energy of wherever it was natally for the rest of your life as it travels around your chart and spends, 2.5 years in each house of your chart, which is a significant amount of time. It's carrying with it the inherent energy of where it was born, where it was in your natal chart. There's an underlying essence and energy of what Saturn holds for you, depending on where he was natally in your chart. So as he travels, that energy goes with him, okay? And it unfolds and plays out in all the other areas that he travels in. So where is Saturn located natally? What sign is Saturn in? What aspects does Saturn have? Aspects are really important, and I'll do a whole video on aspects one day because they are they are so important and so important to understand. There's a lot of different aspects as well. There's what's called the Ptolemaic aspects, which are the major sort of aspects that most astrologers use. And then there are a number of other aspects that can also be considered, not always, so it depends on the planets involved in the aspect. So what does an aspect generally mean? It generally means we've got this planet over here and we've got this planet over here, and they're having a dialogue, they're having an interaction, there's an energy exchange going on. And depending on the nature of the aspect, that will determine what kind of dialogue these two planets are having. What are they sharing? What are they giving to each other? What are they taking away from each other? All that sort of stuff. So it's the dynamics of the energy relating to the planets involved in whatever aspect is involved. So pretty much most of your planets will be aspected, okay? Some people can have what's called a lot of stelliums, which is basically having a whole bunch of planets in one house, so in one area of the chart. And then some people can have loads of oppositions. And if those two examples that I've just given, if you've got a bunch of stelliums or if you've got loads of oppositions, that says a lot about your life and what you're here to do and how you operate, essentially. It's really important to understand aspects. Okay, so just to recap, where is Saturn located? What sign is it in? What aspects does it have? The next thing you need to look at is where is Capricorn in your chart? Okay, because Saturn rules that part of your chart, essentially, wherever Capricorn is located. So where is Capricorn in your chart? The next thing you need to look at, you might want to get a pen and paper. The next thing you need to look at is, say for example, you had Capricorn on the 12th house, cusp. That would mean that your natal Saturn, and let's say your Saturn was in the 4th, which is in fact my chart now that I'm describing, because I've got Capricorn on the 12th house cusp, and I've got Saturn in the 4th. So Saturn's in the 4th, it's describing all my family stuff, but it rules my 12th house. So, where is Capricorn located? Where is Saturn located? What sign is Saturn in? What aspects does Saturn have? And the next thing you need to look at is the actual 10th house in your natal chart, because by the nature of the zodiac, the 10th house is the Capricorn house, even if you don't have Capricorn there. So there's a few layers to look at and to explore. It's not so simple as just saying, yeah, Saturn's in Capricorn and it's in rulership and, you know, it's going to bring great stuff to me. It may or it may not, okay? It's going to depend on a lot of different factors, such as the ones that I've just mentioned. In addition to that, what age you are as well, and, you know, your overall, I guess, background and experience thus far up until this point in life. So, this is what I want to show you. So, just have a look at this, okay? Now, what I'm showing you is a chart that only has 3 things in it. That's transiting Saturn up there, and I've made it very, very simple and kept the natural order of the zodiac, okay? So, at the moment, or when Saturn goes into Capricorn and it hits 10 degrees, this is where it's going to be in this particular chart. So this is transiting Saturn, okay? Now, in the opposite house, what I've put is Saturn there as well in Cancer, suggesting that this person has Saturn in Cancer natally in their birth chart, okay? And this person happens to be in Aries, and they've got their Sun in the 1st house. So what is actually happening here is that this person has a Sun square Saturn natally, which is a pretty challenging aspect to have natally alone, okay? Now what we have when Saturn moves in Capricorn, in this person's 10th house, it forms a square to the Sun, and it forms an opposition to this person's natal Saturn. This is a pretty big deal. So I'm showing you here that even though Saturn in Capricorn is fantastic on the various ways that I've already explained, what's happening in this person's life is it's actually Saturn opposite Saturn, which is, in this case, this person would be 42 years old. Okay, it's the 2nd Saturn opposition in terms of from the time they were born. So this is a really important time in this person's life. And the oppositions always bring awareness, objectivity, and clarity, okay? The square, though, to the Sun is going to add some different elements and energies and dimensions, and I'm going to explain that to you. But I just wanted to show you this. So this is what I'm going to talk about now. So Saturn in Capricorn in the 10th house for this individual is a really major transit for this person, because they happen to have Capricorn, they just happen to be born with the natural order of the zodiac. I just simplified it, okay? So they've got Capricorn in their 10th house, and they've got transiting Saturn in the 10th house. Now, just about to head in there. So 10th house is your life path, your vocation, your life calling. It's your personality and the being that you are on that social external level. So when Saturn gets to that level at around about the age of 42, because it's opposite its natal position, it's a really important time for showing you, okay, what have you been doing the last 7 years? What have you been building? What have you been working and developing? How have you been growing? And all of that is now coming to light because we're talking Saturn opposite Saturn. But leave that aside for a moment and just think about Saturn in Capricorn in the 10th house. If you had that right now, it's a really powerful time for consolidating and for a culmination period in your life. So, you know, everything you've been working towards and developing and building and creating has reached a really peak point. So in your profession right now, if you had Saturn in Capricorn, some of the ways that this would manifest is, for example, you might get a promotion at work, you might get offered, in that whole promotional spectrum of things, you might get offered a really high position, because Saturn in Capricorn is always going to be some kind of elevated position. It's leadership, in other words, okay? So you might get offered a very high leadership role, which would enhance your life on a lot of different levels, financially, status-wise, and so forth. But it's not going to come easily. It's going to mean that you're going to really have to apply yourself and work hard to almost like prove yourself, in a sense, okay? So it's kind of like the Saturn is working externally, in that Saturn is giving you some rewards now for the hard work that you've been doing over the last few years, okay? And he's saying, I recognize that you've been working really hard, and I'm going to support you in what you've actually, the foundations that you've laid and what you've culminated and created over this period of time. And through this support, I'm going to take you quite a few steps higher so that you can continue to grow and evolve and develop in your career, because we are talking about the 10th house, which is the house of career, okay? So, yeah, that's an example of how Saturn in Capricorn would manifest if you had it transiting your 10th house. In the example that I gave, it's actually opposite its natal position. So that adds a whole other dimension, which I briefly touched on when I said this would make the person about 42 years of age. So it's quite a critical point in life. It's often from the mainstream psychological kind of sphere of things. It's referred to frequently as the midlife crisis. And it is a midlife crisis for many different reasons. But what happens to a person psychologically and emotionally during this time is that there's some recognition or realization around how one has been living their life. So depending on how you've been living your life, and I'm talking about on every spectrum of the board, really, you know, because we, unfortunately, through this physical body and the development of our chronological experience, we are posed with limitations. We, you know, the way you were, I'm speaking generally, there are exceptions. Generally, you know, when you were 17, 18 and you felt invincible, and, you know, not much could get you down, let's say, well, you know, when you're 42, it is a little bit different. You know, your energy levels are not quite the same. So it's, you know, this is Saturn really just, you know, showing you that time really does adjust and change things, you know, psychologically, emotionally, and physically. So at the age of 42, you've reached a real crisis point. Okay, and it's a time to get really serious about what the hell you're doing with your life. Where are you at? What foundations have you built? Now, some of us build foundations in our personal life and our professional life that seemed like a good idea at the time. And over a period of time, what seems to unfold is that those choices we made finally get to an end point, if you like. It's like we've exhausted that particular path, and it's not actually conducive to our soul development anymore. And this would be what would come in, with Saturn opposite Saturn at the age of 42, with the example that I'm using today. So the person starts to question, what personal and professional choices they have made that have led them to this point. And it's a whole reevaluation process, because Saturn opposite Saturn gives you that crystallization. An opposition is always objectivity, clarity, and awareness, okay? You are able to have clear, full view of where you stand in yourself, in your life right now. And because of that clarity and that awareness, you're able to make decisions accordingly. You're able to see what no longer works in your life, or what you really need to let go of. We can't actually invite something in, invite a new path or create a new path, when we're still hanging on to old structures that actually don't serve us anymore. Okay, so one of the greatest challenges for a lot of people, unless you've got a shitload of Aquarius, maybe Scorpio, Pluto energy, Uranus energy, and Sag, those are the signs and planets that really thrive on transformation, deaths, letting go, in other words, leaving things behind them and so forth. But, there are a lot of other signs left over that are not so naturally accustomed to that. They're opposite to that. That is that they would rather stay in a situation or a path because it is familiar. So therefore, it presents a level of security. I may not like it, but I feel safe here because I know where I am. So it is always that unknown element that brings up the fear in us, where we are afraid to take risks and step out of our comfort zone. And that's the very thing that we need to do throughout the course of our life, in different periods, of course. So generally speaking, yes, I'm just going to wrap it up here because I wanted to make this video about 30 minutes and I'm almost there. So Saturn in Capricorn is going to be brilliant on many different levels for all of us. I think even if you've got some challenging aspects there in your chart natally, or that Saturn is making a challenging aspect to something in your chart while it's in Capricorn at the moment, it's okay. Because Saturn in Capricorn is saying you are being supported here. This energy is very supportive, okay? Even if there are some square aspects, it doesn't mean that you will fail. It just means that you will have to face the challenges that are presented and work with them as best you can. Now, one of the things that you could say could be posed by, say, the example that I used with Saturn in the 10th, this person is in Aries and they had their Sun in the first house, so Sun is square Saturn. One thing that could really show up with this particular example is because we're talking about an Aries individual who's somebody who's independent, free thinker, courageous, impulsive, spontaneous, energetic, ready to just race into anything and just absolutely go for it. Risk takers, that's Aries, right? But this person has transiting Saturn squaring his Sun at the moment, okay? So there's going to be, Saturn is going to ask this person to take a step back, take it easy. You cannot be impulsive with Saturn energy. You cannot rush into things. You cannot bypass things, and you certainly can't ignore things. So it's about working on a real practical, earthy level with perseverance, patience, responsibility, and having tolerance as well. Because one of the things that Saturn doesn't have is tolerance when it's working at a very dysfunctional level. So look, these are just some pointers, some keywords that I've given you as well to consider and to think about. But essentially, just to recap, you need to look at Saturn natally. What house is it in? What sign is it in? What degrees is it in? What aspects does it have to it? What is in the 10th house in your natal chart? Where is Capricorn in your natal chart? And where is transiting Saturn at the moment in your natal chart? When you actually look at these various layers and dimensions that I've just offered you, you actually build a story, okay? It gives you more of a holistic picture of what transiting Saturn in Capricorn will mean for you over the next 2.5 years. We don't look at things in isolation. We never do. I've mentioned that in probably most of my videos because it is a fact. It's not just my idea or my perception. When we're talking about astrology, which is the study of cycles, many cycles, all intertwining and connecting, so nothing is working in isolation. Therefore, we must be able to, and not able to, but we absolutely have to look at everything else that's involved on these various dimensions. So I hope that gives you a little bit of understanding about a direction to take, with your own chart when you're looking at what Saturn in Capricorn is going to mean for you over the next 2.5 years. But yeah, in short, it's going to be a period of consolidation, success, growth, and development on a number of different levels. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I really hope that this helps in some way. Please feel free to ask any questions. I've added my professional Facebook page to my YouTube channel now as well, where I'll be posting some articles. I've only just started that, so please be patient with me. If you're interested in having a reading, please contact me. And if you have any comments or questions about this, please feel free to comment and ask questions. And thank you for the new subscribers that I have. I love you all. Thank you so much for your support, and see you all soon. Bye.